You usually don't help us make our beds on Saturday. Is company coming or something?
No, Wally, I wanted to talk to the Beaver.
It was the perfect picture of American life. A tidy suburban home, a smiling mother in pearls, and two well-behaved boys who never seemed to step too far out of line. Leave It to Beaver wasn't just a sitcom. It was the moral blueprint for the 1950s family. But behind the curtain of polite manners and perfect lawns, the show was quietly breaking television taboos and challenging censors. What seemed innocent was, in fact, more daring than most fans ever realized. Today, we're uncovering the hidden stories, strange decisions, and controversies buried beneath America's most wholesome show. The episode nearly banned for indecency. When Leave It to Beaver premiered in 1957, America was a nation obsessed with purity and propriety. Every image that appeared on television had to pass the scrutiny of conservative censors. So, when early episodes showed June Cleaver, played by Barbara Billingsley, wearing her nightgown and robe in the privacy of her own home, critics lost their minds. To modern audiences, it seems harmless, but at the time, the idea of a woman being seen in pajamas on national television was borderline scandalous. Network executives received complaints accusing the show of promoting indecency. Some local stations even considered pulling the episode entirely. Ironically, June Cleaver was one of the most modest characters on television, but to 1950s sensibilities, even the suggestion of domestic intimacy was considered inappropriate. The controversy nearly derailed the show before it ever took off. But instead of bowing to outrage, the producers held their ground, arguing that families deserved to be shown as they really lived. It was a small victory for realism, and it quietly opened the door for a more authentic portrayal of American households on screen. What looked like innocence was actually quiet rebellion hidden beneath the laughter. The lost episode that shocked television. In 1957, Leave It to Beaver made television history for a reason few would expect. The second episode ever filmed, titled Captain Jack, nearly never made it to air. The reason? It showed something that had never appeared on American television before: a toilet. At the time, network censors enforced strict moral codes on what could be shown in homes across the country. Bathrooms were considered far too private for public broadcast. When producers submitted the episode to CBS, executives were horrified. They demanded the entire scene be cut, but the creators, Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher, fought back. The scene was harmless. Young Beaver wanted to raise a pet alligator, and the toilet tank simply appeared as part of a gag about hiding the creature. After long negotiations, a compromise was made. Only the top of the toilet tank would be shown, not the bowl. It may seem trivial today, but in 1957, that moment quietly broke a taboo. Leave It to Beaver became the first American show to feature a toilet on screen. The controversy exposed the strange moral walls of the era and proved that even the cleanest sitcoms sometimes had to flush away the rules to make history. Barbara Billingsley's hidden secret behind the pearls. Every time June Cleaver appeared on screen, she seemed effortlessly perfect, graceful, polished, and always wearing her trademark string of pearls. Viewers assumed it was a symbol of elegance, the final touch to her image as the ideal 1950s housewife. But behind that piece of jewelry was a hidden secret only Barbara Billingsley knew. Billingsley wore the pearls not as a fashion statement, but as a clever disguise. She had a small indentation at the base of her neck that she disliked on camera. Under harsh studio lights, it appeared more pronounced, so she began wearing pearls to subtly conceal it. The look became so iconic that even she was surprised by how strongly audiences associated it with June Cleaver's identity. Decades later, Billingsley revealed the truth in interviews, laughing at how such a personal decision became a cultural trademark. What began as a self-conscious choice became one of television's most enduring images of maternal grace. Behind every episode, her pearls glimmered under the lights, symbolizing not only the perfection America wanted to see, but also the quiet insecurities hidden beneath that perfect surface. June Cleaver's pearls were more than costume jewelry. They were television's most elegant cover-up. The strange origin of Beaver Cleaver's name. For decades, fans have wondered why Theodore Cleaver was called Beaver. It sounded innocent enough for a child, but oddly specific for a boy's nickname. The truth, though humorous, reveals how accidents can become pop culture legends. According to creators Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher, the name came from a real-life mispronunciation. They recalled a friend who struggled to pronounce Theodore as Theodore, which came out sounding like Beaver. The nickname amused them so much that they used it for their main character, never expecting it to become iconic. Jerry Mathers, who played Beaver, later said he didn't even like the nickname at first. But as the show grew popular, the Beaver became a symbol of American innocence. Ironically, many adult viewers snickered at the double meaning the writers hadn't intended. Over time, the wholesome humor of the show overshadowed any unintended innuendo. What began as a slip of the tongue turned into one of television's most recognizable names. It showed that sometimes the quirkiest details, the ones no one plans, are the ones that last the longest. In the end, Beaver wasn't just a nickname, it became a brand for an entire era of television simplicity. The bizarre rumor of Beaver's death in Vietnam. By the early 1970s, Leave It to Beaver had ended, but its characters lived on in the minds of millions of fans. That's why a strange rumor in 1972 shocked the entertainment world. News outlets began reporting that Jerry Mathers, the actor who played Beaver, had died in the Vietnam War. The story spread fast. Newspapers published obituaries. Radio hosts paid tribute. Even television anchors mentioned it briefly. The only problem? Jerry Mathers was very much alive. The rumor had started after a soldier with a similar name was killed in action, and confusion spiraled into national myth. Mathers first heard of his death while watching TV with friends, who were horrified to see his name listed among fallen soldiers. He later appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson to clear the air, joking that he had come back from the dead. The incident became one of the strangest cases of mistaken identity in Hollywood history. For a brief moment, America mourned a childhood hero who had never died. The story was both eerie and absurd, a reminder that even in the pre-internet age, rumors could spread like wildfire, and sometimes the Beaver could live twice. Tony Dow's hidden battle behind the smile. To millions of viewers, Tony Dow's Wally Cleaver represented the perfect older brother, confident, kind, and endlessly patient. On screen, he was the picture of balance and reliability, the moral compass of the Cleaver family. But off-camera, Dow's reality was far more painful. As the series ended and fame faded, he faced a lifelong struggle with depression that he kept hidden from the public for years. Dow began acting at a young age and never intended to make it his career. When the show ended, he found it difficult to escape Wally's shadow. Casting directors still saw him as the all-American boy, not a serious actor. The frustration built quietly, turning into self-doubt and despair. In the 1980s, Dow finally spoke openly about his depression, becoming one of the first child stars to publicly address mental health. He used his experience to help others, speaking at conventions and support groups. His honesty broke the silence surrounding celebrity mental illness long before it became a public conversation. Tony Dow's story revealed that behind every smiling face from the golden age of television, there could be untold struggles. His courage to speak out made him more heroic than Wally Cleaver ever was. The Cleaver house that wasn't real. The Cleaver family's home was the symbol of American perfection. Its white picket fence, tidy lawn, and welcoming porch became the dream of every suburban viewer. But here's the truth most fans never realized. The Cleaver house was never a real home at all. It was a facade built on the Universal Studios backlot, and the rooms behind the front door were nothing more than empty space and plywood. The first version of the house appeared during the show's early seasons at Republic Studios. Later, when production moved to Universal, the crew reconstructed the same design from scratch. The house was carefully angled to look real on camera, with painted windows and artificial light mimicking morning sunshine. After Leave It to Beaver ended, the same facade was recycled countless times. It appeared in Marcus Welby, Maryland, Desperate Housewives, and even The Munsters. Visitors who tour the Universal lot today can still see its ghostly remains, repainted and repurposed for modern shows. For audiences, it represented the American dream. For Hollywood, it was just another set. The illusion was so perfect that it fooled millions for decades, proving that television's most real families often lived in the most artificial of homes. Poorer than the Cleavers. To viewers, the Cleavers seemed comfortably middle class. Ward had a good job, June stayed home, and their two sons never lacked toys or adventure. But Off-screen, the actors who brought this perfect family to life weren't living the same dream. Jerry Mathers, who played Beaver, once revealed that his salary was barely enough to buy the same toys his character owned on television. In the 1950s, child actors were rarely protected by strict labor laws or fair pay regulations. While the show's success made producers wealthy, the young stars received modest weekly checks that didn't reflect the show's popularity. Tony Dow's family had to manage his career carefully to make ends meet, and Barbara Billingsley often said that most of the money she earned went into supporting her family, not building wealth. Unlike today's child stars, there were no merchandise deals or residual payments from reruns. When Leave It to Beaver aired again in syndication, the cast saw little to none of the profits. For the actors, fame brought recognition, but not financial stability. Behind the Cleaver's sparkling kitchen and polished smiles were performers quietly struggling to make the illusion of prosperity look effortless on screen. Ward Cleaver's perfect dad image and hidden struggles. Ward Cleaver, played by Hugh Beaumont, became the television standard for fatherhood, patient, moral, and endlessly wise. He represented the model every 1950s dad was supposed to emulate. But the man behind the role carried burdens few fans knew about. Beaumont was not only an actor, but also an ordained Methodist minister. Off-camera, he lived by strong moral convictions, yet the pressures of fame and personal loss weighed heavily on him. During filming, Beaumont often traveled long distances to visit his family, who lived in Minnesota. The separation took a toll. When his son was tragically killed in a car accident, Beaumont's grief deeply affected him. But he continued filming, using his work as a way to cope. Cast members recalled moments when Beaumont's quiet intensity replaced his calm on-screen demeanor. His frustration sometimes showed in rehearsals, though he remained respected for his professionalism. Despite his struggles, Beaumont's portrayal of Ward Cleaver became a cultural touchstone for fatherhood. Viewers saw a pillar of stability, never knowing the pain behind the man who played him. It was a reminder that the perfection of television families was often sustained by the quiet endurance of real human heartbreak. The lost pilot that vanished for decades. Before Leave It to Beaver became a household name, there was a pilot episode almost no one saw. It was called It's a Small World, and it aired once in 1957 as part of a television anthology before disappearing completely. The strangest part? The pilot featured a completely different set of actors for Wally and Ward Cleaver. Producers Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher filmed the pilot with a low budget and little expectation. But when CBS picked up the series, they decided to recast several roles, reshoot the opening, and rename the show Leave It to Beaver. The pilot was stored away, mislabeled, and soon forgotten. For years, fans assumed it had been lost forever. Then, in the early 1980s, a film collector stumbled upon a forgotten reel in a Hollywood vault. It was the long-lost It's a Small World, still intact and watchable. When it finally resurfaced, audiences were stunned to see a different Cleaver family, the early blueprint of what would become a television classic. The rediscovery proved how close Leave It to Beaver came to fading into obscurity before it even began. From one misplaced reel, television history was nearly erased and accidentally reborn. The show that predicted the space age. Before astronauts walked on the moon or NASA became a household name, Leave It to Beaver hinted at a future America could barely imagine. In one early episode, Beaver and Wally played with a toy rocket, launching it into the backyard while dreaming about space travel. The scene was simple, but prophetic. It aired 2 years before NASA's founding and a full decade before the Apollo missions. The fascination with rockets reflected the optimism of post-war America. Science fiction was emerging as a cultural force, but Leave It to Beaver was not a sci-fi show. The writers simply captured the curiosity of young boys who gazed at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Ironically, many children who grew up watching the Cleavers would later work in aerospace and engineering fields. The show's accidental prediction of the space age symbolized a deeper truth about 1950s America. Beneath the calm suburban life was a generation already dreaming of progress and adventure. Leave It to Beaver preserved that innocence before the turbulence of the 1960s, standing as a quiet time capsule of hope. It wasn't just about family, it was about the boundless imagination of an era on the edge of discovery. Eddie Haskell's real-life transformation into a police officer. On Leave It to Beaver, Eddie Haskell was the charming troublemaker every parent feared and every teacher dreaded. Played by Ken Osmond, he perfected the art of polite sarcasm, sweet-talking adults while leading his friends into mischief. Fans loved his two-faced antics, but Osmond's life after the show took a turn no one expected. He became a real police officer. After struggling to find acting roles, Osmond joined the Los Angeles Police Department in the early 1970s. The irony wasn't lost on fans. Television's most notorious prankster had become a man of the law. His fellow officers nicknamed him Eddie, both as a joke and a badge of respect. In 1980, while on duty, Osmond was shot multiple times during a traffic stop. His bulletproof vest saved his life. The incident cemented his reputation as a real-life hero, far removed from the sneaky character he once played. He later returned to acting briefly, reprising his role as Eddie in Still the Beaver. Ken Osmond's transformation was one of television's most unexpected journeys. The actor who once symbolized teenage rebellion ended up protecting the very kind of community that Eddie Haskell spent years on screen pretending to deceive. A real brotherhood behind the scenes. The heart of Leave It to Beaver was the bond between Wally and Beaver Cleaver. On screen, they shared laughs, lessons, and the occasional argument. Off camera, that connection was entirely real. Jerry Mathers and Tony Dow formed a genuine friendship that lasted decades, long after the final episode aired. Both young actors grew up together on set, attending school between takes and relying on each other for support through the pressures of fame. They became like real brothers, sharing secrets, teasing each other, and celebrating milestones together. Crew members often remarked that their chemistry required almost no direction. When Dow began directing episodes of the later revival series, the new Leave It to Beaver, their bond became even stronger. Mathers once said that working with Tony felt like coming home. Their relationship was so sincere that it gave authenticity to every scene they shared. Unlike many child stars who drift apart after fame, Dow and Mathers remained close for more than 60 years. Their friendship became one of television's most touching legacies, proving that behind the lights and scripts, real love and loyalty could grow from the simplest childhood stories ever told. The Cleaver family's strict language rules. Every word spoken on Leave It to Beaver was carefully chosen. The Cleaver family never shouted, cursed, or used slang, and that wasn't an accident. Producers enforced a strict language policy to maintain the show's moral image. Certain words were banned outright. Even mild phrases like gee whiz or gosh darn were reviewed by network censors. Writers were required to craft dialogue that reflected ideal family manners, even when it didn't sound natural for kids. The result was a version of American life so polite it bordered on surreal. For example, Beaver couldn't say stupid, and Wally wasn't allowed to use the word jerk. Every episode became a lesson in restraint. Despite the restrictions, the writers found creative ways to make conversations feel real. They invented harmless slang that kids across America began repeating. Words like swell and golly became part of popular culture, defining the tone of the decade. The strict language code revealed how much pressure there was to project moral perfection. Behind every cheerful line, there was an invisible rule book shaping the Cleavers' behavior. It wasn't just about dialogue. It was about preserving the illusion that good manners alone could keep a family pure. Filmed in black and white by choice. When color television became available in the late 1950s, most shows rushed to adopt it. But Leave It to Beaver remained in black and white for its entire original run. The decision wasn't about budget. It was deliberate. Producers Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher believed that the monochrome tone gave the show its warmth and timeless quality. Black and white created a sense of nostalgia even as the show was airing. The shadows and soft lighting gave the Cleaver home a dreamlike glow, making it feel safe and orderly. It also masked imperfections on set, hiding the artificial walls and props that color would have exposed. When the revival series arrived in the 1980s, many fans missed the old black and white charm. Critics noticed that colorized versions of old episodes somehow felt less authentic. The decision to stay monochrome had turned Leave It to Beaver into a time capsule of American optimism. In an age obsessed with innovation, the choice to keep things simple became revolutionary. The Cleavers didn't just represent an era, they preserved it. Every black and white frame whispered of a world where problems had clean solutions, and every day ended with a lesson well learned. June Cleaver's revolutionary kitchen. June Cleaver's kitchen was more than a set. It was a glimpse into the future of American homemaking. At a time when most TV kitchens were little more than painted walls and prop counters, the Cleaver kitchen stood out for one reason. It was fully functional. Every appliance worked, from the refrigerator to the oven, allowing Barbara Billingsley to perform real actions instead of pantomiming them. Producers wanted authenticity. They believed that if June looked comfortable in her environment, audiences would believe in the world of the Cleavers. The kitchen became a silent character in the show, representing the heart of suburban life. Beyond its realism, the design was groundbreaking. The pastel colors, open layout, and sleek appliances set new standards for how American homes were imagined. Viewers began copying its look, and appliance companies used it as a reference for marketing real kitchens. June Cleaver's kitchen symbolized domestic perfection, but it also reflected progress. It quietly celebrated technology, efficiency, and the growing importance of women's roles in shaping modern life. Within its tidy walls, the future of television and American culture was being cooked up, one casserole at a time. The pet alligator incident, one of the strangest behind-the-scenes moments on Leave It to Beaver, involved an animal that never quite followed the script. For an episode titled Captain Jack, young Beaver orders a baby alligator through the mail and decides to keep it as a pet. The idea sounded funny on paper, but the production team didn't expect the real alligator to cause such chaos on set. Handlers brought in a live baby alligator for filming, thinking it would be harmless. But during shooting, the reptile became restless and started thrashing in the studio lights. Crew members scrambled while the young actors tried to stay calm. Jerry Mathers later recalled that everyone was terrified, including him. The scene had to be filmed quickly before the animal became too aggressive. After the incident, the production team decided never to use a live alligator again. The experience became legendary among cast and crew, who often joked that the star of the episode nearly upstaged everyone else. Ironically, the episode went on to become one of the show's most memorable stories. What began as an innocent comedy scene turned into a genuine brush with danger, proving that even in Mayfield, surprises could come from anywhere, even the bathtub. How June Cleaver accidentally started a fashion trend. In the 1950s, America's housewives looked to June Cleaver for more than moral guidance. They looked to her for fashion inspiration. With her neatly pressed dresses, high heels, and ever-present pearls, Barbara Billingsley's character became the blueprint for suburban style. What began as costume design soon evolved into a nationwide trend that shaped the image of the ideal American woman. Fans admired June's elegance. She always looked polished, even while baking cookies or cleaning. The wardrobe team ensured that her dresses were tailored to perfection, using floral prints, soft fabrics, and modest cuts that balanced femininity with respectability. Women across America began copying the look, and department stores advertised June Cleaver-style house dresses. The phenomenon went beyond television. Advertisers used June's image to sell appliances, makeup, and household goods, linking her appearance to the American dream of domestic bliss. Even decades later, the term June Cleaver remains cultural shorthand for a picture-perfect homemaker. Behind the charm, though, the look symbolized both empowerment and constraint. It celebrated grace under pressure, but it also reflected society's expectations of women in that era. June Cleaver didn't just wear pearls, she defined a generation's vision of perfection, one outfit at a time. The fans who broke into the Cleaver house. Few television homes have ever captured the imagination of fans quite like the Cleaver residence. To millions, it felt real, a warm, welcoming place that represented everything wholesome about American life. But for some fans in the 1960s, admiration turned into obsession. They wanted to see the Cleaver home for themselves, and that curiosity led to a series of bizarre break-ins at the Universal Studios backlot. Tourists would sneak past security, wandering through sets to find the famous house. Some even posed for photos on the porch, unaware that they were trespassing on a closed production area. Universal Studios began receiving reports of fans scaling fences and hiding among props, hoping to step inside the Cleaver living room. Security eventually tightened, but the incidents revealed how deeply Leave It to Beaver had entered American consciousness. People didn't just watch the show, they wanted to live it. The Cleaver home symbolized comfort and stability in a changing world, something worth chasing even if it meant breaking the rules. What those fans found, however, wasn't a cozy family home, but a hollow shell of painted wood and lights. The perfect house was never real, yet, for millions, it always felt like home. The first sitcom told through a child's eyes. When Leave It to Beaver premiered, television comedies were almost always written from the perspective of adults. Parents taught lessons, children listened, and moral order was neatly restored. But Leave It to Beaver did something radical for its time. It told the story through the eyes of a child. Every episode centered on Beaver's curiosity, mistakes, and attempts to understand the adult world around him. Writers Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher based the concept on their own children's experiences. Instead of treating kids as background characters, they made them the emotional core. Viewers saw life as Beaver did, confusing, funny, and sometimes unfair. Adults were well-meaning, but often out of touch, and the show's humor came from that innocent misunderstanding. This shift in perspective changed television storytelling. It made children feel seen and validated, something rare in the 1950s. The show's gentle humor and moral lessons resonated across generations. By focusing on Beaver's point of view, Leave It to Beaver captured the universal experience of growing up. It wasn't just about family life. It was about learning how to navigate a complicated world with curiosity and heart, a perspective that forever altered the DNA of American sitcoms, the legacy that never ended. When Leave It to Beaver aired its final episode in 1963, many thought the Cleaver family's story had come to an end, but the show's legacy refused to fade. Decades later, it returned to television in Still the Beaver, 1983, a reunion film that became a new series. The revival followed an adult Beaver raising his own children, now facing the same challenges his parents once did. The continuation was surprisingly heartfelt. It showed how the Cleaver values, honesty, kindness, and understanding could endure even in a changing world. Fans embraced the nostalgia while appreciating the show's updated realism. Many of the original cast members returned, including Jerry Mathers and Barbara Billingsley, bringing the story full circle. Beyond the screen, Leave It to Beaver remains a touchstone of American culture. Its influence can be seen in countless family sitcoms that followed, from The Wonder Years to Modern Family. The Cleavers became a permanent part of the national imagination, representing both an ideal and a mirror. In the end, Leave It to Beaver was never just a television show. It was a reflection of who America wanted to be. And decades later, the laughter, lessons, and legacy still feel alive. Beneath its simple stories and gentle humor lay bold choices, social challenges, and quiet acts of defiance that shaped the language of television forever. It reflected an ideal America that never truly existed, yet offered comfort to generations searching for one. From behind-the-scenes scandals to cultural firsts, the show captured both the innocence and contradictions of its time. More than 60 years later, its legacy reminds us how even the most wholesome stories can carry the most surprising truths.